The fog rolled thick across Crystal Lake like a blanket of secrets, carrying with it the smell of damp wood and forgotten memories. The mystery machine's headlights cut through the mist as it rumbled along the winding lakeside road, its occupants unaware of the financial mystery that awaited them beneath the dark waters. Like, why did we agree to come to this creepy place again? Shaggy asked, his voice trembling as he clutched a half-eaten sandwich. The sound of water lapping against the shore created an eerie rhythm in the background. Daphne leaned forward from the back seat, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Because Shaggy, my distant relative, Cornelius Blake, supposedly hid a fortune in his mansion before it sank into the lake 50 years ago. If we can find it, we could learn about his legendary investment strategies. Velma adjusted her glasses, the glow from her tablet illuminating her face. According to my research, Cornelius Blake turned a modest inheritance of $10,000 into over $50 million through smart investments and compound interest. But here's what's interesting. People have been seeing a glowing phantom guarding the sunken mansion, and several treasure hunters have disappeared near the lake. Jinkies. And get this, Velma continued, scrolling through articles. The local bank has been offering rewards to anyone who can prove the treasure doesn't exist. They claim they're protecting people from wasting their money on a financial fantasy. Scooby-Doo's ears perked up at the sound of something splashing in the distance. Row. Fred gripped the steering wheel tighter. Gang, this sounds like a mystery that involves both danger and dollars. We need to be smart about this, just like Cornelius Blake was with his money. We'll need to plan carefully, gather evidence, and not waste our resources chasing false leads. As the mystery machine pulled into a clearing near the lake's edge, the water began to bubble and churn. A ghostly green light emerged from beneath the surface, and an ethereal voice echoed across the water. Leave this place. The fortune is cursed. Those who seek IT shall sink with I. A translucent figure rose from the lake, a phantom in a tattered Victorian suit, its hollow eyes glowing with menace, water dripping from its spectral form. The smell of algae and decay wafted toward them. Zoinks! Shaggy dropped his sandwich. Like, maybe we should invest in running away really fast. Scooby-Dooby-Doo! Scooby howled, already heading back toward the van. But Daphne stood firm, her curiosity overcoming her fear. Wait, look at its clothes. Those are authentic 1970s investment banker attire. This phantom knows something about money. The phantom pointed a dripping finger at them before sinking back into the murky depths, leaving ripples that seemed to form dollar signs on the water's surface. Velma's eyes narrowed. Yang, I think someone doesn't want us finding that fortune, and they're willing to create an expensive illusion to keep us away. The question is, why? What are they really protecting? And what can we learn about wealth, risk, and reward by solving this mystery? The stage was set. The Mystery Inc. gang was about to dive into their most financially complex case, yet where the real treasure might not be gold and jewels, but the invaluable lessons about money, investing, and the true cost of greed. The morning sun struggled to pierce through the persistent fog that clung to Crystal Lake like a possessive ghost. The mystery machine sat parked near a weathered dock, its colorful exterior a stark contrast to the gray, muted tones of the abandoned lakeside property. The air smelled of pine needles, wet earth, and the faint metallic scent of old money, or perhaps just old coins that had settled at the lake's bottom over decades. Shaggy stretched dramatically as he stepped out of the van, his stomach growling loudly enough to echo across the water. Like, man, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Or maybe just 17 sandwiches. You know, whatever's more economically efficient. Raggy Rook. Scooby pointed with his paw toward a small bait shop at the edge of the property. A crooked sign read, Pete's Bait, Tackle, and Tourist Traps. We accept all major credit cards and bad decisions. Velma chuckled, pulling out a small notebook. Interesting business model. Shaggy, before you spend all your money. Remember, you only brought $20 for this trip. That means you need to budget. Maybe 2 sandwiches now. Save some for later, or you'll be hungry tonight with empty pockets. Like, budget schmedget. Shaggy waved dismissively. I'll just buy everything now and worry about later. Later. He started jogging toward the shop, with Scooby close behind, their mouths already watering. Fred pulled out a map of the lake area, spreading it across the Mystery Machine's hood. His ascot fluttered in the gentle breeze as he studied the contours and depth markers. Okay, gang, according to this map, Cornelius Blake's mansion sank right here, about 200 feet from shore, in approximately 40 feet of water. We'll need diving equipment, which means we'll need to rent it from the marina downtown. Daphne pulled out her phone, quickly searching for rental prices. Her purple dress swayed as she leaned against the van. Fred, the diving equipment costs $150 per person for the day. That's $750 for all 5 of us. Do we have that in our mystery-solving budget? Velma pushed her glasses up thoughtfully. Actually, Daphne, we don't all need to dive. That would be wasteful spending. Fred and I could dive while you coordinate from the boat. Shaggy and Scooby could, well, they could stay on shore and investigate the local businesses for clues. That cuts our cost to $300, a 60% savings. Now, that's what I call smart economics. Fred grinned, folding up the map. See, gang? Planning ahead and not overspending means we have resources left over for emergencies. It's the same principle. Cornelius Blake probably used to build his fortune. He didn't waste money on unnecessary things. Daphne nodded, making notes on her phone. My research shows that Cornelius started with very little. He saved 15% of every paycheck, avoided debt, and only invested in things he understood. By age 50, compound interest had done most of the work for him. A loud crash interrupted their conversation. The gang turned to see Shaggy stumbling out of the bait shop, his arms loaded with bags of chips, sandwiches, sodas, and candy bars. Scooby followed, wearing a new collar with a price tag still attached, carrying a bag of premium dog treats in his mouth. Like, check it out, guys. I got us supplies. Shaggy beamed proudly. Velma walked over, examining the receipt that trailed from one of the bags. Her eyes widened. Shaggy. This receipt says $47.83. You only had $20. Shaggy's smile faltered. Well, like the guy said I could put it on something called a credit card with only 23% interest. He said it was, like, free money. Jinkies. Velma exclaimed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Shaggy, that's not free money. That's debt. If you don't pay it off right away, you'll owe even more money because of interest charges. That 23% means your $47.83 could become over $58 if you don't pay it back within a year. Scooby's ears drooped. Raro. Fred crossed his arms, but his expression was more educational than angry. Shaggy, this is exactly the kind of financial trap people fall into. Credit cards aren't bad. They're tools. But using them to buy things you can't afford right now means you re-borrowing from your future self. And your future self has to pay extra for that privilege. Like, I didn't know. Shaggy protested, his voice small. The guy made it sound so easy. Daphne patted his shoulder sympathetically. That's how they get you, Shaggy. It's called predatory lending, making debt seem attractive to people who don't understand the real cost. Tell you what, I'll cover this for you this time, but you'll work it off by helping us extra hard on this case. Deal. Deal. Shaggy looked relieved. Like, thanks, Daph. I promise I'll be more careful with money. Rank you, Raffany. Scooby added, licking her hand gratefully. Velma tucked the receipt into her notebook as evidence. You know, this might actually be a clue. If Pete's bait shop is using high-interest credit to trap tourists, Maybe there's a pattern of financial exploitation around this lake. Let's investigate. Before they could continue the discussion, a black luxury car pulled up beside them, its engine purring like a contented panther. The door opened, and a tall woman in expensive business suit stepped out, her heels clicking authoritatively on the gravel. Her perfume smelled of money literally, with notes of crisp paper and brass. "You must be the Mystery Inc. group," she said coldly, extending a business card. "I'm Victoria Ledger, Senior Vice President of Crystal Lake Federal Bank. I understand you're here searching for the Blake fortune." Fred took the card, examining it. "That's right. We're investigating the mystery of the sunken mansion and the phantom that's been scaring people away." Victoria's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How quaint. I'm here to save you time and money. The Blake fortune is a myth of financial fairy tale that has cost this community thousands in wasted search efforts, diving accidents, and false hope. Our bank has historical records proving Cornelius Blake died broke. The mansion sank with nothing but furniture and disappointment." Daphne stepped forward, her investigative instincts tingling. "If it's just a myth, why does your bank seem so invested in proving it doesn't exist? That's an unusual expense for a financial institution." Victoria's expression hardened. "Because every year, treasure hunters come here, spend money they don't have, go into debt renting equipment, and then sue everyone when they find nothing. It's bad for business and bad for the community. Consider this a friendly warning. Leave now, save your money, and avoid the dangers that await those who don't listen." "Dangers?" Velma's curiosity was piqued. "Are you referring to the phantom?" "I'm referring to the reality that searching for fairy tales has financial consequences." Victoria replied curtly. "Good day." She returned to her car and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and perfume in her wake. The gang stood in silence for a moment, processing the encounter. Maybe she's right," Shaggy suggested hopefully. "Maybe we should just go home and I can work off my debt by, not solving mysteries for a while?" "No way." Daphne's eyes sparkled with determination. "Did you see her reaction when I asked why the bank cares so much? She's hiding something. Banks don't spend money to disprove rumors unless those rumors threaten their bottom line." Velma nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. And here's another thing. She said Cornelius died broke. But my research shows multiple newspaper articles from 1975 talking about his investment success. Someone's lying, and we need to follow the money to find out who." Fred rallied the group. "All right, gang. Looks like we've got a real mystery on our hands. Let's split up and gather information. Velma and I will head to the county records office and research the property history and Blake's financial records. Daphne, can you interview some locals and find out more about the phantom sightings?" "On it." Daphne confirmed. "And Shaggy and Scooby," Fred continued. "You two check out more of the lakeside businesses. Talk to people. Buy a reasonable amount of food with cash this time, and see what you can learn about Victoria Ledger and the bank's interest in this property. As long as it involves food, I'm in," Shaggy agreed. "Rhea, rude." Scooby barked happily. As the group began to split up, a distant sound echoed across the lake, a mournful wail that seemed to come from beneath the water itself. The fog thickened, and for just a moment, they all saw it. The ghostly figure rising from the lake, its arms spread wide, its voice carrying across the water like a dire prophecy. "Turn back. The price of greed is your soul. The fortune demands payment in fear." The phantom sank once more beneath the surface, leaving concentric circles rippling outward. Shaggy clutched Scooby. Maybe the real treasure is the friends we made along the way. And we should just appreciate that from, really far away from here. But Velma was already taking notes, her analytical mind racing. Did anyone else notice the phantom appeared right after Victoria Ledger left? And it specifically mentioned greed and payment economic terms. This isn't just a ghost story, gang. This is a financial conspiracy, and someone is using fear as currency to keep people away from the truth. The hook was set. The mystery had officially begun. And as the gang dispersed to investigate, none of them noticed a figure watching from the woods, a figure with very modern diving equipment and a waterproof bag full of something that glinted gold in the filtered sunlight. A loud crash interrupted their conversation. The gang turned to see Shaggy stumbling out of the bait shop, his arms loaded with bags of chips, sandwiches, sodas, and candy bars. Scooby followed, wearing a new collar with a price tag still attached, carrying a bag of premium dog treats in his mouth. "Like, check it out, guys. I got us supplies." Shaggy beamed proudly. Velma walked over, examining the receipt that trailed from one of the bags. Her eyes widened. "Shaggy, this receipt says $47.83. You only had $20. Shaggy's smile faltered. Well, the guy said I could put it on something called a credit card with only 23% interest. He said it was like free money." "Jinkies," Velma exclaimed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Shaggy, that's not free money. That's debt. If you don't pay it off right away, you'll owe even more money because of interest charges. That 23% means your $47.83 could become over $58 if you don't pay it back within a year." Scooby's ears drooped. Roro. Fred crossed his arms, but his expression was more educational than angry. "Shaggy, this is exactly the kind of financial trap people fall into. Credit cards aren't bad, they're tools. But using them to buy things you can't afford right now means you're borrowing from your future self. And your future self has to pay extra for that privilege. I didn't know." Shaggy protested, his voice small. The guy made it sound so easy. Daphne patted his shoulder sympathetically. "That's how they get you, Shaggy. It's called predatory lending, making debt seem attractive to people who don't understand the real cost. Tell you what, I'll cover this for you this time, but you'll work it off by helping us extra hard on this case. Deal." "Deal." Shaggy looked relieved. "Thanks, Daph. I promise I'll be more careful with money." "Rank you, Raffney," Scooby added, licking her hand gratefully. Velma tucked the receipt into her notebook as evidence. "You know, this might actually be a clue. If Pete's bait shop is using high-interest credit to trap tourists, maybe there's a pattern of financial exploitation around this lake. Let's investigate." Before they could continue the discussion, a black luxury car pulled up beside them, its engine purring like a contented panther. The door opened, and a tall woman in an expensive business suit stepped out, her heels clicking authoritatively on the gravel. Her perfume smelled of money literally, with notes of crisp paper and brass. "You must be the Mystery Inc. group," she said coldly, extending a business card. "I'm Victoria Ledger, Senior Vice President of Crystal Lake Federal Bank. I understand you're here searching for the Blake fortune." Fred took the card, examining it. "That's right. We're investigating the mystery of the sunken mansion and the phantom that's been scaring people away." Victoria's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How quaint. "I'm here to save you time and money. The Blake fortune is a myth, a financial fairy tale that has cost this community thousands in wasted search efforts, diving accidents, and false hope. Our bank has historical records proving Cornelius Blake died broke. The mansion sank with nothing but furniture and disappointment." Daphne stepped forward, her investigative instincts tingling. "If it's just a myth, why does your bank seem so invested in proving it doesn't exist?" "That's an unusual expense for a financial institution." Victoria's expression hardened. "Because every year, treasure hunters come here, spend money they don't have, go into debt renting equipment, and then sue everyone when they find nothing. It's bad for business and bad for the community. Consider this a friendly warning. Leave now, save your money, and avoid the dangers that await those who don't listen." "Dangers?" Velma's curiosity was piqued. "Are you referring to the phantom?" I'm referring to the reality that searching for fairy tales has financial consequences. Victoria replied curtly. Good day. She returned to her car and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and expensive perfume in her wake. The gang stood in silence for a moment, processing the encounter. Like, maybe she's right, Shaggy suggested hopefully. Maybe we should just go home and I can work off my debt by, not solving mysteries for a while? No way! Daphne's eyes sparkled with determination. Did you see her reaction when I asked why the bank cares so much? She's hiding something. Banks don't spend money to disprove rumors, unless those rumors threaten their bottom line. Velma nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. And here's another thing. She said Cornelius died broke, but my research shows multiple newspaper articles from 1975 talking about his investment success. Someone's lying, and we need to follow the money to find out who. Fred rallied the group. All right, gang, looks like we've got a real mystery on our hands. Let's split up and gather information. Velma and I will head to the county records office and research the property history and Blake's financial records. Daphne, can you interview some locals and find out more about the phantom sightings? On it, Daphne confirmed. And Shaggy and Scooby, Fred continued. You two check out more of the lakeside businesses. Talk to people, buy a reasonable amount of food with cash this time, and see what you can learn about Victoria Ledger and the bank's interest in this property. As long as it involves food, I'm in, Shaggy agreed. Rhea, rude, Scooby barked happily. As the group began to split up, a distant sound echoed across the lake. A mournful wail that seemed to come from beneath the water itself. The fog thickened, and for just a moment, they all saw it. The ghostly figure rising from the lake, its arms spread wide, its voice carrying across the water like a dire prophecy. Turn back. The price of greed is your soul. The fortune demands payment in fear. The phantom sank once more beneath the surface, leaving concentric circles rippling outward. Shaggy clutched Scooby. Maybe the real treasure is the friends we made along the way, and we should just appreciate that from, really far away from here. But Velma was already taking notes, her analytical mind racing. Did anyone else notice the phantom appeared right after Victoria Ledger left? And it specifically mentioned greed and payment, economic terms. This isn't just a ghost story, gang. This is a financial conspiracy. And someone is using fear as currency to keep people away from the truth. The hook was set. The mystery had officially begun. And as the gang dispersed to investigate, none of them noticed the figure watching from the woods, a figure with very modern diving equipment and a waterproof bag full of something that glinted gold in the filtered sunlight. The Crystal Lake County Records Office smelled of old paper, dust, and the particular mustiness that comes with decades of bureaucratic neglect. Velma and Fred stood at a worn counter while an elderly clerk named Herbert shuffled through filing cabinets that looked older than the building itself. Blake. Cornelius Blake, Herbert muttered, his gnarled fingers dancing across folder tabs. Ah, here we are. Though I must warn you, young people, many have searched these records, and many have left disappointed or frightened. Velma's eyes lit up behind her glasses. Frightened? By paperwork? Herbert leaned in conspiratorially, his breath smelling of peppermint and secrets. 3 weeks ago, a young researcher came looking at these exact files. She found something that excited her greatly made copies of everything. The next day, she left town suddenly, and the bank purchased all her research for an undisclosed sum. He tapped his nose knowingly. Crystal Lake Federal Bank doesn't usually buy random research, if you catch my meaning. Fred exchanged a meaningful glance with Velma. Did you see what she found? I did indeed, Herbert smiled, producing a thick folder. Because I make copies of everything interesting that passes through here. Call it my insurance policy or my pension plan, depending on how you look at it. He spread the documents across the counter. Velma immediately began scanning them, her analytical mind processing the information at remarkable speed. "Jinkies!" she exclaimed. "Fred, look at this." Cornelius Blake didn't just invest in stocks and bonds. According to these documents, he purchased the entire lakebed surrounding his property in 1974, right before real estate values in the area exploded. He paid $50,000 for underwater property that most people thought was worthless. Fred studied a surveyor's map. But why would someone buy a lake bottom? Velma's fingers traced lines across several documents. Because he knew something others didn't. Look, 3 months after his purchase, the state announced plans to develop Crystal Lake into a major recreational area. Waterfront and lakebed property values increased by 800% overnight. That $50,000 investment became worth over $400,000 in less than a year. "That's what we call information advantage," Herbert interjected, clearly enjoying their discovery. "Legal, but very clever." He did his research, identified an opportunity before others saw it, and invested accordingly. Classic wealth-building strategy. But here's what's really interesting, Velma continued, pulling out another document. Cornelius never sold the lakebed. According to this deed, it passed to his estate when he died, and the ownership has been in legal limbo for 50 years because no heir has claimed it. Technically, whoever can prove legal claim to the Blake estate owns approximately 200 acres of lake bottom, which today would be worth ... She pulled out her phone and did quick calculations. Approximately $3.2 million at current lakefront property values. Fred whistled low. So the real fortune isn't sunken gold and jewels, it's land ownership. But who would benefit from people not knowing about this? Someone who wants to claim the land themselves, Velma theorized, her mind racing. Or someone who's already using the land and doesn't want the real owner to show up. Herbert, are there any records of business licenses or permits issued for the lakebed? Herbert's eyes twinkled. Now you're asking the right questions, young lady. He produced another folder, this one clearly marked confidential. Strictly speaking, I shouldn't show you this, but I believe in justice over protocol. 5 years ago, Crystal Lake Federal Bank applied for permits to build a luxury underwater hotel complex on the lake bottom. The permits were denied because they couldn't prove ownership of the lakebed. But according to my notes, they've been slowly buying up all the surrounding properties anyway. Except they can't do anything with them until the Blake estate question is resolved. So that's why Victoria Ledger wants everyone to believe there's no fortune. Fred's face showed understanding dawning. If Blake's heirs never claim the estate, eventually it could be seized by the county for unpaid taxes, then auctioned, and the bank could buy it for pennies on the dollar. Velma nodded vigorously. And every treasure hunter who comes looking for gold and jewels is actually a threat to their plan, because someone might stumble onto the real treasure, the property deed. That's why they're so aggressive about discouraging searches. The Phantom is probably just a scare tactic to protect their future investment. Herbert carefully returned the documents to their folders. One more thing you should know: the researcher who was here. Her name was Diana Blake. She claimed to be Cornelius's great-grandniece, and she had documents to prove it. If she's the rightful heir, she owns all of it. But after the bank bought her research, she disappeared. Some say she took a payoff and left town. Others say, well, they say she had an unfortunate encounter with the Phantom. A chill ran down Fred's spine despite the warm office. Do you have contact information for her? No, but I have something better. Herbert pulled out a photocopy of an ID. I always copy identification when people request sensitive documents. Professional habit. Meanwhile, across town at the Crystal Lake Marina, Daphne was interviewing the dockmaster, a weathered man named Captain Eddie who smelled of fish, diesel fuel, and decades of lake water. His small office was decorated with fishing trophies, maritime maps, and a suspicious number of nitrogen monoxide trespassing signs. The Phantom? Captain Eddie leaned back in his creaky chair. Oh, it's real all right. Seen it myself 3 times. Always appears around midnight. Always near where the old Blake mansion went down. Glows green like toxic waste. Moans like a dying whale. And anyone who gets too close finds their boat engine mysteriously dies. Daphne took notes on her phone. Has anyone ever gotten close enough to photograph it? A few tried. Funny thing, their cameras always malfunction. Water damage, they say, even though the cameras never touch the water. Almost like something's interfering with electronics. He paused meaningfully. Of course, some folks say the Phantom's protecting the Blake fortune. Others say it's Blake himself, cursed to guard his greed for eternity. What do you think? Daphne asked, watching his reaction carefully. Captain Eddie's expression shifted to something calculating. I think there's money to be made from a good ghost story. I charge premium rates for phantom tours, at night $200 per person, and people pay it. Last month alone, I made $6,000 from tourists wanting to see the ghost. From a business perspective, the Phantom's the best thing that ever happened to my marina. Daphne's investigative instincts tingled. So you'd prefer if the Phantom stayed then? Keeps business good? Now, hold on, Eddie said defensively. I'm not saying I created the Phantom or nothing, but I'm not complaining about the economic benefits either. That's just good entrepreneurship, identifying market demand and providing a service. Adam Smith would approve. He chuckled at his own economics joke. Has Victoria Ledger from the bank ever approached you about your business? Daphne asked casually. Eddie's jovial expression vanished instantly. How do you know about that? I'm a good researcher, Daphne replied smoothly. It's public record that the bank tried to buy your marina last year. You refused to sell. Then suddenly, your property taxes tripled. That's quite a coincidence. The captain's jaw clenched. That woman's been trying to force me out for 2 years. Says the marina doesn't fit the upscale vision for Crystal Lake's development. But this marina's been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it with his own hands, and I'll be damned if some corporate banker pushes me off my land just because she wants to build some fancy resort. So, the bank is definitely planning major development here, Daphne confirmed. Do you know what they're planning specifically? Eddie pulled out a crumpled newspaper clipping from his desk drawer. This ran in the business section 6 months ago, but got pulled from online editions the same day. He handed it to Daphne. The headline read, Crystal Lake Federal Bank Plans. $50 million. Underwater hotel complex pending land acquisition. Daphne photographed the article quickly. Captain Eddie, this is exactly the kind of evidence we need. The bank has a massive financial incentive to control the lake bottom. If they're willing to harass local business owners, they might be willing to create a fake Phantom to scare away treasure hunters. You think the Phantom's a hoax? Eddie looked almost disappointed. I think someone with expensive equipment and a motive to control the lake could create a very convincing ghost, Daphne replied. And I think we need to catch them in the act. At Pete's bait shop, Shaggy and Scooby were having a very different kind of investigation, one that primarily involved eating. Like Pete, these sandwiches are amazing. Shaggy mumbled through his 4th sub-sandwich. What's your secret? Pete, a friendly man with a prominent belly and permanent smile, wiped down the counter. Glad you like 'em. Secret is, I make everything fresh and keep my costs low. Unlike that fancy restaurant Victoria Ledger opened downtown with marble floors and $40 steaks, I focus on value. Good food, fair prices, loyal customers. That's sustainable business. Very smart, Scooby agreed, his mouth full of dog treats. You know Victoria Ledger? Shaggy asked, suddenly remembering they were supposed to be investigating. Pete's friendly expression soured slightly. Know her? She's been trying to buy out every small business on the lake for the past 3 years. Offers you pennies for properties worth dollars, then threatens you with legal trouble if you refuse. She wanted my shop for $50,000, but the land alone is worth $200,000. Tried to tell me I don't understand the market value. Well, I understand somebody's trying to rob me. Like, that's terrible, Shaggy said sympathetically. How do you fight back against someone with bank money? You stick together, Pete replied firmly. All us small business owners formed a coalition. We share information, support each other, and refuse to be bullied. There's strength in numbers, same principle as a union or a co-op. When one of us gets threatened, we all lawyer up together and split the legal costs. Much cheaper than fighting alone. Scooby's ears perked up. That's smart. Economics isn't just about making money, Pete continued, clearly passionate about the subject. It's about cooperation, mutual benefit, and standing up to monopolistic behavior. If Victoria buys everyone out, she controls all the prices, all the services. That's bad for competition and bad for consumers. Shaggy was genuinely impressed. Like, Pete, you're not just a sandwich artist, you're an economics artist. Just trying to make an honest living, Pete smiled. Unlike whoever's running that phantom scam to scare away tourists. That's bad for everyone's business. Well, everyone except Captain Eddie. He makes a killing on those ghost tours. Pete's expression turned thoughtful. Actually, come to think of it, Eddie's been awfully quiet about Victoria's bailout attempts. Most of us are fighting her tooth and nail, but Eddie just clammed up. Wonder why? Shaggy and Scooby exchanged glances. Raro, Scooby said quietly. Before they could pursue that line of thinking, Shaggy's phone buzzed. It was a text from Fred. Gang meeting at Mystery Machine in 20 minutes. Everyone, bring what you learned. This mystery is deeper than we thought. 20 minutes later, the entire gang reconvened at the Mystery Machine. The sun beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the lake in shades of gold and crimson. The smell of evening air mixed with the aroma of Shaggy's emergency sandwich stash. Fred spread out a map on the van's hood. Okay, gang, let's pool our information and see what we've got. Velma went first, explaining the property deed revelation. So the real Blake fortune isn't jewelry. It's real estate worth millions. And Crystal Lake Federal Bank has been systematically trying to gain control of it. Daphne added her findings. Victoria Ledger has been aggressively buying out local businesses and harassing those who won't sell. The bank plans a $50 million development project, but they can't move forward without controlling the Blake Estate's lakebed property. And like, Pete says Captain Eddie's been suspiciously quiet about the bank's pressure. Shaggy contributed. Plus, Eddie admitted he makes crazy money from ghost tours, $6,000 last month alone. Velma's eyes widened. So Eddie has a financial motive to keep the Phantom legend alive. It's literally his business model. But would he work with the bank? Fred wondered aloud. That seems contradictory. Unless, Daphne theorized, the bank promised him something. Like maybe a contract to run tours at their fancy new resort, or a bailout price he couldn't refuse. Follow the money, right? Who benefits most if the Phantom keeps everyone away from discovering the truth about the property deed? The bank. They all said together, except Scooby and Shaggy, who said, rank. And like the bank. Velma pulled out the photocopy of Diana Blake's ID. And there's one more piece. A legitimate heir to the Blake fortune was here 3 weeks ago. Diana Blake, Cornelius's great-grandniece. She found the same documents we did, then mysteriously left town after the bank bought her research. We need to find her. She might be in danger, or she might be part of the scheme. So our suspects are, Fred counted on his fingers, Victoria Ledger, who wants the land for her bank, Captain Eddie, who profits from the Phantom legend, and potentially Diana Blake, who might have been paid off or scared off, or all three working together. Velma added excitedly. Victoria creates the Phantom to scare people away from discovering the property deed truth. Eddie profits from giving tours of the haunted lake. And Diana might have been paid to surrender her inheritance claim. As if summoned by their deductions, the lake suddenly began to bubble and churn. The temperature dropped dramatically, and that now familiar green glow emerged from the depths. The phantom rose higher than before, its spectral form towering above the water, its voice booming across the entire lake. You have been warned. Those who seek the Blake fortune will pay the ultimate price. Leave now or join me in the depths forever. Zoinks! Shaggy grabbed Scooby. Maybe we should respect the phantom's clearly stated boundaries. But Velma was studying the apparition with intense focus. Wait. Everyone look at the base of the phantom, where it meets the water. Do you see that? They all squinted through the dimming light. There, Daphne pointed. Is that ... A tube? Like an air hose? Jinkies! It is, Velma exclaimed. That's not a ghost. That's someone in a diving suit with projection equipment. This is all a hoax. The phantom seemed to realize it had been spotted. It quickly sank back into the water, disappearing with suspicious speed. We need to catch them in the act, Fred declared, his leadership kicking into high gear. If we can prove the phantom is fake, we can expose whoever's behind this fraud and solve the mystery of the Blake fortune. Gang, I think it's time we set a trap. Did you have to use the T-word? Shaggy whimpered. Velma was already pulling up equipment rental websites on her phone. We'll need underwater cameras, waterproof lights, maybe some diving equipment of our own. Fred, what's our budget looking like? Fred checked his wallet and their mystery-solving fund. We've got $400 left. If we're smart about it, we can rent what we need and still have emergency money. Remember, never spend everything on one plan. Always keep a reserve. That's called an emergency fund, Velma explained for the audience at home. Financial experts recommend always having 3 to 6 months of expenses saved for unexpected situations. We're applying the same principle to mystery solving. Daphne nodded approvingly. Smart economics and smart detective work. Okay, gang, let's make a plan. We'll need to lure the phantom out tomorrow night, document the fraud, and expose who's behind it. And maybe, just maybe, we'll find out what really happened to Diana Blake. As the sun finally set behind the mountains, casting Crystal Lake into deep shadow, none of them noticed the figure with binoculars watching from the bank's office across the lake. Victoria Ledger lowered the binoculars, picked up her phone, and dialed. They know about the property deed, she said coldly. Initiate phase 2. Make sure they don't leave this lake with that information. The mystery was deepening, the stakes were rising, and the gang was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous villains aren't supernatural. They're the ones who weaponize economics for personal gain. The next morning arrived with deceptive cheerfulness. Sunlight sparkled on Crystal Lake's surface like scattered diamonds, and birds sang in the surrounding pine trees as if there wasn't a financial conspiracy brewing beneath the placid waters. The mystery machine sat parked near the marina, now accompanied by a rented equipment trailer containing diving gear, underwater cameras, and various electronic equipment. Remind me again why we're planning to go swimming with a potentially murderous phantom? Shaggy asked, watching nervously as Fred and Velma checked the diving equipment. Because, Shaggy, Velma explained patiently while adjusting her wetsuit, we now know the phantom is a hoax designed to protect the multi-million-dollar land fraud. The best way to expose a hoax is to document it happening. We're going to get underwater footage of whoever's operating that fake ghost. Scooby whimpered. What if it's a real Rost? Daphne knelt down to pet him reassuringly. Scooby, think about it economically. Ghosts don't need money, right? They're dead. But Victoria Ledger and her bank have every reason to protect a $3.2 million land deal. Follow the financial motive. It always leads to the truth. Besides, Fred added, testing the waterproof housing for the camera. We're not going down unprepared. We've rented proper equipment, we're diving in pairs, and we filed our dive plan with the local authorities. Safety first, which is also an economic principle, by the way. Preventing problems is always cheaper than fixing them. The sound of an approaching engine drew their attention. Captain Eddie's boat pulled up to the dock. the captain himself looking notably uncomfortable. "Heard you folks were planning a dive," he called out. "Wanted to offer some advice, free of charge." Daphne exchanged glances with the others. "That's very kind of you, Captain. What kind of advice?" Eddie secured his boat and walked over, his weathered face showing genuine concern. "Look, I know what you kids probably think, that I'm part of whatever's going on here. And I'll admit, I've been making good money off the Phantom tours. But last night, Victoria Ledger came to see me." He paused, seeming to wrestle with his conscience. "She offered me $500,000 for my marina and a contract to run authentic experiences at her new resort once it's built." "That's a lot of money," Fred observed carefully. "It is," Eddie agreed. "More than I'd make in 10 years of running this place. But here's the thing, she also threatened me. Said if I didn't take the deal, she'd make sure environmental inspectors found violations that would shut me down anyway. And she said if I talked to anyone about our conversation, especially meddling investigators, there would be ... consequences." Velma's analytical mind processed this information. So she's using a combination of bribery and intimidation. Classic coercive economic tactics. "Captain Eddie, what made you decide to tell us?" Eddie sighed deeply, looking out at the lake. "My grandfather always taught me that money made dishonestly will eat at your soul. He built this marina with honest labor, treating customers fairly and sleeping well at night. I've been wrestling with this all night, and I realized I'd rather lose my business fighting for what's right than keep it by helping someone steal from a dead man's family. That's not the kind of wealth I want to pass down." Shaggy looked genuinely moved. "Like, that's really noble, Captain Eddie. It's also smart economics in the long run," Velma added. "Studies show that businesses built on fraud and coercion eventually collapse. Short-term gains from dishonest practices lead to long-term losses, legal troubles, reputation damage, loss of customers. Your grandfather understood that ethical behavior is actually the most profitable strategy over time." Eddie nodded. "I suppose he did. Anyway, I wanted to warn you Victoria's not just protecting a business deal. Last night when she left, I followed her." He pulled out his phone and showed them photos. "She met with 2 men in diving suits at the old quarry access point on the north side of the lake. They were loading some kind of projection equipment and what looked like underwater speakers into a boat. Industrial-grade stuff, expensive." Fred studied the photos carefully. "So they're planning another Phantom appearance, probably to scare us away permanently. Captain, this is incredibly helpful. Would you be willing to testify about the bribery and threats?" "I would," Eddie confirmed. "But you'll need hard evidence, too. Victoria's smart, she covers her tracks. That's why I think you should know about the underwater entrance." "Underwater entrance?" Daphne leaned forward with interest. Eddie pulled out a faded maritime map. "The Blake mansion didn't just sink, it was built partially underground to begin with, like a bunker. Old Cornelius was paranoid about burglars, so he had a tunnel system built that connected the mansion to a cave on the north shore. When the mansion sank, that tunnel survived. It's how whoever's operating the Phantom has been getting in and out without being seen from the surface." Velma's eyes lit up. "Jinkies. That explains how they move equipment and disappear so quickly. Captain, can you show us where this tunnel entrance is?" "I can do better than that," Eddie said. "I can take you there in my boat. But we should go now, before Victoria realizes I've switched sides. Once she knows I've talked, she'd probably have the tunnel entrance guarded or collapsed." Fred rallied the gang. "Okay, change of plans. Velma and I will still make the dive as scheduled. That'll keep Victoria's attention focused on the main mansion site. Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby, you go with Captain Eddie to investigate the tunnel entrance. We'll communicate via waterproof radios and coordinate our search." "Like, why do we always have to investigate the creepy underground tunnels?" Shaggy complained. "Because you're excellent at finding clues when you're running away from danger," Velma said with an encouraging smile. "Plus, Daphne will be with you, and she's great in crisis situations. Daphne checked her investigation kit. Flashlights, camera, evidence bags, and emergency supplies. Don't worry, guys. We'll be careful. And remember, whoever's down there is just a person in a costume trying to protect a financial fraud. The real scary thing isn't ghosts. It's unchecked corporate greed. That's not reassuring. Scooby protested. 20 minutes later, the team split up. Fred and Velma waded into the water in full diving gear, their underwater camera equipment secured. The water was cold, even through their wetsuits, and visibility was limited to about 15 feet. Small fish darted away as they descended, and the sunlight filtering from above created dancing patterns of light and shadow. Testing radio. Fred's voice crackled through the waterproof communication system. Daphne, can you hear me? In Captain Eddie's boat, now heading toward the north shore, Daphne pressed her radio button. Loud and clear, Fred. We're approaching the tunnel entrance now. Captain Eddie says it's hidden behind some rocks about 50 yards from shore. Roger that, Fred responded. Velma and I are about 20 feet down, heading toward the mansion's location. The visibility isn't great, but we can see some structural debris ahead. Velma's voice joined in. I'm taking water samples as we go. If they're using any kind of chemical luminescence for the phantom effect, there should be trace elements in the water. That would be physical evidence of the hoax. On the boat, Shaggy clutched the railing nervously as they approached the rocky north shore. The terrain here was rougher, with jagged boulders creating a natural barrier between the lake and the forest beyond. The smell of algae was stronger here, and the water looked darker, less inviting. There, Captain Eddie pointed to a cluster of large rocks. See that gap between the two biggest boulders? At low water, you can walk right in. But the lake level's higher now, so you'll have to wade or swim the last bit. Daphne studied the entrance through binoculars. I don't see any guards or cameras. Maybe Victoria doesn't know we've learned about this entrance. Or maybe it's a trap, Shaggy suggested hopefully. Like, maybe we should just mark it on a map and tell the police to investigate? Where's your sense of adventure, Shaggy? Daphne grinned, already pulling off her shoes and socks. Besides, if we wait for official channels, Victoria might have time to destroy evidence. We need to document what's down there right now. Captain Eddie secured the boat to a concealed mooring. I'll wait here and keep watch. If anyone approaches, I'll radio you immediately. But please be careful. I don't know what Victoria might have set up down there to protect her operation. Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby waded through the cold water toward the rock entrance. The water reached up to Shaggy's chest, making him yelp at the temperature. Scooby doggy paddled beside him, looking miserable but determined. Like the things we do for mystery solving, Shaggy muttered. I could be at home right now, eating a nice sandwich, watching TV, not risking hypothermia, ... Think of it as an investment in justice, Daphne encouraged. And when we solve this mystery, think of the people who'll help Diana Blake getting her rightful inheritance. Small business owners like Pete and Captain Eddie keeping their livelihoods, and tourists not being scammed by fake ghost tours. They reached the gap in the rocks. Daphne shined her waterproof flashlight inside, revealing a narrow passage that sloped upward. The walls were a mix of natural cave rock and old concrete. Clearly, parts of this tunnel had been man-made. Looks creepy, Scooby observed accurately. But it also looks unused recently, Daphne pointed out. No fresh footprints in the mud, no disturbed cobwebs. Maybe they're using a different entrance, or maybe they haven't been here in a while. They proceeded carefully into the tunnel, water dripping from their clothes, their flashlights creating dramatic shadows on the damp walls. The air smelled of minerals, mold, and something else, something vaguely chemical, like cleaning supplies or industrial solvents. After about 50 feet, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Daphne gasped. The chamber was filled with equipment, underwater scooters, professional diving gear, large batteries, projection equipment, and what appeared to be sophisticated holographic generators. Everything was carefully organized on waterproof shelves and tables, connected by cables to a portable generator. Jinkies, oh wow. Daphne corrected herself, shaking her head and adopting Velma's catchphrase. This is sophisticated stuff. This equipment must have cost tens of thousands of dollars. No amateur ghost hoaxer has this kind of budget. Shaggy was examining a rack of glowing ghost costumes. Like, check it out, they've got different phantom outfits. Classic Victorian ghost, scary sea monster, even a glowing skeleton. It's like a costume department for scaring people. Scooby found something even more interesting, a small refrigerator. Rude! He opened it excitedly, then wilted in disappointment. Rust water and Renergy drinks. They're staging operations from here, Daphne reasoned, taking photos of everything. Someone probably hired by Victoria has been coming here, suiting up in these phantom costumes, using underwater scooters to reach the mansion site, then using these holographic projectors to create the ghost apparitions. This is a multi-$1,000 operation. She picked up a logbook from one of the tables and flipped through it. Look at this. They've logged every phantom appearance for the past 6 months. Date, time, duration, number of witnesses scared away. They're treating this like a business operation, because that's exactly what it is. That's really bad, Scooby noted. And really illegal, Daphne added. Fraud, trespassing, harassment, possibly even reckless endangerment. Victoria Ledger has committed multiple crimes to protect her land deal. This evidence could put her in prison. Suddenly, her radio crackled to life. It was Velma, and she sounded excited but concerned. Daphne, we found something incredible down here. There's an intact section of the mansion, like an underwater vault. And inside it, Daphne, there are safety deposit boxes, files, and what looks like actual gold bars. That's beautiful, Daphne said, genuinely. But Diana, you can't hide down here forever. Victoria just tried to seal us in and probably plans to fake a cave-in accident. We need to work together to expose her fraud and secure your legal claim. Before Diana could respond, they heard sounds from the tunnel they'd just come through, voices, equipment, digging. They're breaking through, Diana said grimly. Victoria must want access to this chamber. She probably knows about the records and wants to destroy them. Shaggy looked around nervously. Like, is there another way out of here? Please tell me. Cornelius built multiple exits because he was really smart. Diana smiled slightly. He did. There's an emergency tunnel that leads to the old quarry. But if we use it, we'll be abandoning all this evidence. Victoria's people could destroy everything before we get back with help. Daphne made a quick decision. Then we don't all leave. Diana, you take Shaggy and Scooby through the emergency exit. Get to the police. Bring them back. I'll stay here and defend the evidence. Like, there's no way we're leaving you alone. Shaggy protested. You have to, Daphne insisted. Diana needs protection getting to the authorities. And someone needs to stay here to make sure Victoria doesn't destroy 50 years of documented financial wisdom and evidence. This isn't just about money. It's about justice and education. Those records could help teach people about honest wealth building. Scooby looked torn between loyalty and fear. R.A.P.H.N. ... I'll be fine, Daphne assured him. I've got my phone recording everything, and I can barricade the door. Fred and Velma are safe on the surface calling for help too. But we need you to get Diana out safely. Can you do that for me? Shaggy squared his shoulders in a rare moment of courage. Like, yeah, we can do that. Come on, Scoob. Let's get Diana to safety and bring back the cavalry. Okay, Scooby agreed reluctantly. Diana showed them to a concealed door behind a bookshelf. Follow this tunnel for about 200 yards. It exits behind some bushes near the quarry parking lot. Be careful. There might be more of Victoria's people out there. As they prepared to leave, Diana handed Shaggy a waterproof case. This contains copies of the most important documents, the property deed, Cornelius's investment journals, and evidence of Victoria's attempts to fraudulently claim the estate. If something happens to me or the vault, make sure these reach the authorities. We will, Shaggy promised solemnly. Like, stay safe, Diana. And Daphne, don't do anything too heroic, okay? Just heroic enough. Daphne winked. Now go. Shaggy, Scooby, and Diana disappeared into the emergency tunnel. Daphne immediately set about barricading the main entrance with filing cabinets and equipment. She positioned herself with a clear view of both the door and the vault contents, her phone recording everything. The digging sounds grew louder. Victoria Ledger's voice echoed through. I know you're in there. Come out now, and I'll make this worth your while. I can offer you more money than you've ever dreamed of. Daphne called back firmly. It's not about money, Victoria. It's about what's right. Cornelius Blake built his fortune honestly, and his heir deserves to inherit it. You can't buy that with bribes. Foolish girl. Victoria's voice turned cold. Everything can be bought. Everything has a price. That's the first rule of economics. No, Daphne replied. That's the first rule of greed. Real economics includes concepts like fairness, sustainability, and ethical behavior. Cornelius understood that that's why his wealth lasted. Your wealth is built on fraud, and it'll collapse just as quickly. The barricaded door shuddered as Victoria's men began trying to force it open. Daphne held her ground, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. Fred, Velma, she whispered into her radio. I really hope you guys got to shore safely, and that help is coming. Because I'm about to learn firsthand about the risks of protecting what's right against people who only care about profit. The door shuddered again, harder this time. The investigation had reached its crisis point. Everything now depended on whether Shaggy and Scooby could reach help in time, and whether Daphne could hold out until they did. The true treasure of Crystal Lake was about to be won or lost, not just the money and land, but the principle that honest wealth and ethical behavior should prevail over greed and fraud.